My name is Natalia, and I am 34 years old. 7 years of marriage to Daniel taught me that trust was everything. That Sunday, at Jessica's baby shower, everything seemed perfect. My best friend glowed with pregnancy joy, her husband Thomas beamed with pride, and I was honoured to be named godmother. Then Daniel appeared beside me, his face pale. He grabbed my hand firmly and whispered, "We have to go, now." I had no idea those words would change everything. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you want to hear more real stories about moments that change lives forever. Jessica and I had been best friends for 15 years, ever since we became roommates during our freshman year of college. From the moment we unpacked our things in that tiny dorm room, we formed a bond that would carry us through the highest highs and lowest lows of our lives. She was the artistic one, always covering her side of the room with colourful paintings and sketches, while I was more practical, focusing on my business studies. "You balance me out, Nat," she would say, laughing as I helped her organise her chaotic class schedule or reminded her about assignment deadlines. Jessica was there for me when I landed my first marketing job, and when I was laid off 3 years later during company cutbacks. I was there for her when she struggled through art school and when she finally opened her own gallery. We supported each other through terrible breakups, family troubles, and career changes. When I met Daniel at a company event 8 years ago, Jessica was the first person I called. "I think I just met my husband," I told her, and she squealed with delight. She was my maid of honour at our wedding, giving a speech that made everyone both laugh and cry. And when Daniel and I struggled with infertility for years, Jessica held my hand through each disappointing test result and failed treatment. "Family isn't always about blood," she assured me during one particularly difficult night after another negative pregnancy test. "You will be the most amazing godmother to my kids someday." It was Jessica who understood my pain when Daniel and I finally decided to stop fertility treatments last year. She never bombarded me with insensitive advice or prying questions about adoption. She simply listened and supported. So when Jessica called me, voice shaking with excitement, to tell me she was pregnant after 3 heartbreaking miscarriages, I was genuinely overjoyed for her. Thomas, her husband of 4 years, had been her rock through the pregnancy losses. He was a financial advisor at the same investment firm where Daniel worked as a portfolio manager. Though they worked in different departments and weren't close friends, they got along well at company functions and occasional couples' dinners. "I want you to help me plan the baby shower," Jessica told me 6 months into her pregnancy, when they were finally comfortable announcing it to their wider circle. "You know me better than anyone." I threw myself into planning the perfect baby shower. We decided on a beautiful venue, a private room at the Willow Garden restaurant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lush garden. Jessica didn't want anything too feminine or traditionally baby, so we went with elegant decorations in sage green and soft gold. I ordered custom invitations, planned interactive games that weren't too cheesy, and worked with the restaurant on a menu that would accommodate Jessica's pregnancy food aversions. The guest list included 20 women from different parts of Jessica's life: her sister Amelia, her mother, Barbara, colleagues from her art gallery, childhood friends, and our college group. Stephanie, our mutual friend from college who now worked as a paediatric nurse, helped me with some of the planning. She suggested the diaper raffle and offered to bring some of the decorations since she lived closer to the venue. "Thomas has been so sweet through all of this," Jessica told me the week before the shower as we finalised some details. "He talks to my belly every night and has been reading all these parenting books. I got really sick last week and he took a day off work just to make me soup and watch movies with me." I was happy that Jessica had found such a supportive partner. Thomas always struck me as a bit reserved but undeniably devoted to her. He was tall and conventionally handsome with a polished appearance that matched his corporate job. Jessica, with her artistic temperament and bohemian style, seemed his opposite in many ways, but they complemented each other well. Her creativity balancing his practicality. The day of the shower arrived, and I got to the venue early to oversee the setup. The staff was arranging the flowers when I arrived, and the room looked beautiful. I had brought additional decorations, framed baby photos of Jessica, a clothesline with tiny baby clothes spelling out Baby Palmer, and a welcome sign in Jessica's favourite artistic style. Guests began arriving at noon. Jessica's mother, Barbara, helped me greet everyone, while Jessica and Thomas were still on their way. Barbara had always been kind to me, treating me like a second daughter, especially since my own mother lived across the country in California. "You've done such a beautiful job, Natalia," Barbara said, looking around the room with misty eyes. "Jessica is so lucky to have you as a friend." When Jessica and Thomas arrived, everyone cheered. Jessica looked radiant in a flowing maxi dress that accentuated her baby bump, her long brown hair styled in loose waves. Thomas stood beside her, one hand protectively on her lower back, smiling proudly. Daniel arrived shortly after coming straight from his Sunday morning basketball game. He kissed me quickly and went to congratulate Thomas with a handshake. "Everything looks amazing," Jessica said, hugging me tightly. "I can't believe you did all this for me." The shower began with a brunch buffet and mimosas with alcohol-free options for Jessica and the other pregnant guest. Everyone mingled and chatted, admiring the decorations and asking Jessica about her pregnancy. I kept busy making sure everything ran smoothly, occasionally catching glimpses of Daniel chatting with some of the husbands and partners who had come. That was when I first noticed something odd. Daniel kept checking his phone, which wasn't like him at all. He was usually completely present at social events, often the life of the party, but today he seemed distracted, his forehead creased with what looked like worry. When I approached him to ask if everything was okay, he quickly pocketed his phone and assured me everything was fine. "Just checking some work emails," he said, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I didn't have time to press further because it was time for the baby shower games to begin. As the baby shower festivities continued, I tried to focus on making the event perfect for Jessica. We played Guess the Baby Food, where guests had to identify pureed baby foods by taste, and Daniel politely declined to participate, which was unusual for him. He typically jumped into party games with enthusiasm, always competitive yet good-natured. "I'll sit this one out," he said, hanging back while Thomas good-naturedly accepted a spoonful of what turned out to be pureed peas, making everyone laugh with his exaggerated disgust. During the Measure Mommy's Belly game, where guests tried to cut string to the exact circumference of Jessica's pregnant belly, I caught Daniel staring intensely at Thomas and Stephanie. They were standing on opposite sides of the room, not interacting at all, which struck me as perfectly normal at the time. When Daniel noticed me watching him, he quickly looked away and struck up a conversation with Jessica's brother-in-law. After the games, Jessica's mother Barbara stood to make a toast. "To my beautiful daughter," she said, raising her glass of sparkling cider. "Your father would be so proud of the woman you've become. And to Thomas, thank you for taking such good care of my girl." Everyone clinked glasses, and Thomas placed his hand on Jessica's shoulder, looking every bit the devoted husband. Then Jessica cleared her throat and stood up, her hand resting on her 7-month baby bump. "I have a little announcement to make," she said, looking at me with a wide smile. "Natalia, you have been my best friend through everything, every success, every heartbreak. You're the sister I chose." Her voice cracked slightly. "Daniel and I would be honored if you would be our baby's godmother." Tears sprang to my eyes as I stood to hug her. The room erupted in applause. "Of course," I whispered, trying not to completely break down. After our fertility struggles, this connection to her child meant everything to me. I would be honored. Thomas stood up next, putting his arm around Jessica. "I want to say something too," he said. His voice was steady, his expression sincere as he addressed the room. Becoming a father has always been my dream. Jessica has made that dream come true, and I promise to be the best father and husband I can possibly be. I will never take this blessing for granted." The guests responded with a chorus of awe, and Jessica looked up at him adoringly. I glanced over at Daniel, expecting to see him smiling at this touching moment, but instead his jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. When Thomas finished his speech and the couple sat down, Daniel abruptly stood up. "Excuse me," he muttered, pulling out his phone. "I need to make a call." He walked quickly out of the party room and into the restaurant's main area. I considered following him, but was pulled back into conversation with Amelia, Jessica's sister, who wanted to discuss the upcoming gift opening protocol. 10 minutes later, Daniel returned. His face was noticeably pale, and when he sat beside me, I could feel tension radiating from him. "Is everything okay?" I whispered, genuinely concerned now. "We'll talk later," he said curtly, reaching for his water glass with a slightly shaking hand. The shower continued with the gift opening. Jessica and Thomas sat side by side as she unwrapped present after present, tiny clothes books, baby gear, and sentimental gifts. Thomas dutifully noted down each gift and giver for thank you cards later, occasionally leaning over to examine a particularly cute onesie or useful baby gadget. When Jessica opened our gift, a handmade baby memory book that I had spent weeks creating along with a silver rattle engraved with the baby's expected birth date, she gasped and held it up. "Natalia, this is absolutely beautiful," she said, flipping through the custom pages. "This must have taken you forever." "It was a labor of love," I told her, though I noticed Daniel barely reacted to the gift we had supposedly chosen together. As Jessica opened the last few presents, I observed Thomas interacting briefly with Stephanie as she passed him a glass of water. There was nothing overtly suspicious in their interaction, just ordinary politeness, but I caught Daniel watching them with narrowed eyes. Thomas took out his phone moments later, glancing at it quickly before putting it away. Just then, Daniel grasped my hand under the table, his grip uncomfortably tight. "We have to go," he said quietly, but firmly. "What now? We can't leave yet," I whispered back. "The shower isn't over and I need to help clean up afterward." "Natalia, we have to go now," he insisted, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Trust me." Confused and a little annoyed, I made excuses to Jessica about Daniel not feeling well, promising to call her later. She looked disappointed, but understanding. As we gathered our things to leave, I saw Daniel exchange a hard look with Thomas, whose face seemed to drain of colour in response. What on earth was going on? Daniel practically pulled me through the restaurant and into the parking lot. His stride so quick I had to jog to keep up with him. The bright June sunshine contrasted sharply with the storm brewing on my husband's face. "Daniel, slow down. You're scaring me," I said as we reached our car. "What is going on? Are you sick? Is it work?" He didn't answer until we were both inside the car with the doors closed. Instead of starting the engine, he sat, gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead, his knuckles white. "Daniel," I placed my hand on his arm. "Talk to me. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." He finally turned to face me, his expression a mixture of anger and profound sadness. "I didn't know how to tell you this, especially today of all days. But you need to know." "Know what?" My heart began to pound with dread. "It's about Thomas," he said, the name coming out like it tasted bitter on his tongue. "Last week at the company poker night, I borrowed his phone to call an Uber since mine was dead." I nodded, remembering Daniel mentioning the monthly poker game with colleagues. "A message notification popped up on his screen," Daniel continued. "I wasn't snooping, I swear, but the preview text was explicit. And it wasn't from Jessica." My brain struggled to process what he was implying. "What are you saying?" "It was from Stephanie," he said flatly. "Our Stephanie. Jessica's friend Stephanie." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "That's not possible," I said automatically. "There must be another Stephanie, or you misunderstood, or—" "I didn't say anything that night because I wasn't 100% sure. I thought maybe I misread it or there was some explanation. Daniel rubbed his face tiredly. But today I saw them. When I left to make that call, I wasn't making a call. I followed Thomas when he went to the restroom. He was texting her, and she responded immediately. I could see her across the room looking at her phone and smiling. No, I shook my head vehemently. Stephanie has been Jessica's friend since college. She wouldn't do that. And Thomas, did you see him up there talking about being a father, about being a good husband? He was so convincing. That's what makes it worse, Daniel said, his voice hardening. He's a convincing liar. I confirmed it today, Nat. I saw them exchange a look when she handed him that water, and then I saw their texts. You saw his phone again? I asked, still desperately looking for holes in this terrible story. Daniel nodded grimly. When I went to the bathroom after him, he left his phone on the sink counter. I know it was wrong, but I checked. They've been having an affair for at least 6 months, Natalia. 6 months. That means it started when Jessica was just recovering from her last miscarriage. The realization hit me like a physical blow. 6 months ago, Jessica had been devastated. Her body and heart still healing from her 3rd miscarriage. While she grieved, her husband had apparently been finding comfort elsewhere with someone who was supposed to be her friend. Show me, I demanded, needing proof before I could fully believe something this awful. Daniel pulled out his phone. I took screenshots. I'm sorry to show you this, but you need to see it. He pulled up several images and handed me his phone. My stomach lurched as I scrolled through the messages between Thomas and Stephanie. They were undeniably romantic and sexual in nature, with references to recent encounters and plans for future meetings. In one message, Thomas complained about having to play the doting husband at baby shopping trips. In another, Stephanie called him the love of my life and said she couldn't wait until they could be together properly. Oh my God, I whispered, feeling physically ill. Poor Jessica. This will destroy her. I know, Daniel said. That's why I had to get you out of there. I couldn't sit there another minute watching that farce. Tears filled my eyes as I thought about my best friend, 7 months pregnant, and blissfully unaware that her world was about to shatter. What do we do? Do we tell her? How do we tell her she's pregnant, Daniel? The stress could harm the baby. Not telling her would be worse, Daniel said firmly. She deserves to know who she's really married to. But the timing, I started. There's never going to be a good time for news like this, he interrupted. Think about it, Nat. If we wait until after the baby is born, she'll have a newborn to deal with on top of this betrayal. At least now, she has time to process it before the birth. I stared out the window at the restaurant, where the baby shower was still going on, imagining Jessica's smile, her hand resting protectively on her belly, Thomas, by her side, playing the role of devoted husband, while secretly betraying her in the worst possible way. You're right, I said finally, anger beginning to replace the initial shock. She needs to know, but we need to do this carefully. This isn't just gossip or a minor indiscretion. This is going to change her entire life. What's your plan? Daniel asked. I took a deep breath, trying to think clearly through the emotion clouding my brain. I think I should talk to Thomas first, confront him with what we know, give him a chance to come clean to Jessica himself. Daniel scoffed. You think he'll actually confess? No, I admitted, but I want to see him squirm. I want to look him in the eye and hear what possible excuse he could have for doing this to her. And if he refuses to tell her tonight, then we will. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay, but I'm coming with you. No, I said decisively. I need to do this myself, woman to woman, with Thomas first. You stay in the car. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, come in. Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but finally agreed. He started the car. So we're going back. Yes, I said, a cold determination settling over me. We're going back. As we drove the short distance back to the restaurant, I thought about all the interactions I'd witnessed between Thomas and Stephanie over the past 6 months. Had there been signs I missed, I remembered a dinner party at Jessica and Thomas's house, where Stephanie had arrived late and Thomas had seemed unusually attentive, pulling out her chair, making sure her wine glass stayed full. At the time, I'd thought he was just being a good host. There was also the art gallery opening at Jessica's space 2 months ago. Thomas and Stephanie had been deep in conversation by one of the exhibits when I approached, and they'd abruptly changed the subject. I hadn't thought anything of it then. How could they do this? How could they smile and laugh with Jessica, accept her friendship and trust all, while carrying on this deception? By the time we pulled back into the restaurant parking lot, my sadness had crystallized into rage. These two people had betrayed not just Jessica's trust, but mine as well. They'd made me an unwitting accomplice in their deception by keeping their secret in my presence. "I'll wait here," Daniel said as I got out of the car. 15 minutes, then I'm coming in." I nodded, squared my shoulders, and walked back into the Willow Garden restaurant, my mind focused on a single goal confrontation. I re-entered the restaurant with my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. The baby shower was starting to wind down, with some guests gathering their purses and jackets, preparing to leave. Jessica was still sitting in her decorated chair, looking slightly tired but happy as she chatted with her mother and sister. I scanned the room for Thomas and spotted him near the bar area, checking his phone with a furrowed brow. Probably texting Stephanie again, I thought bitterly. The sight of him acting so normal, so innocent, when I now knew the truth, made my blood boil. Moving purposefully across the room, I avoided Jessica's line of sight. I wasn't ready to face her yet, not until I'd confronted her husband. As I approached Thomas, he looked up and seemed surprised to see me back so soon. "Natalia, I thought you and Daniel left," he said, pocketing his phone quickly. "Is everything okay? We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice low but firm. "Privately, now." He blinked momentarily, thrown off by my tone. Sure. What's going on?" "Not here," I insisted, gesturing toward a small alcove near the restrooms where we wouldn't be overheard. 5 minutes of your time." Thomas glanced over at Jessica, who was distracted with goodbyes to departing guests, then nodded and followed me. Once we were relatively alone, I turned to face him, crossing my arms over my chest. "I know Thomas." His expression remained neutral. "Know what about you and Stephanie?" I said, watching his face carefully. "The affair. Daniel saw your messages." For a moment, Thomas maintained his composure, but then I saw it, the flash of panic in his eyes, the slight paling of his complexion. Still, he attempted to deny it. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said, forcing a laugh. "What messages?" I pulled out my phone where Daniel had sent me the screenshots and held them up for Thomas to see. "These messages, the ones where you call my pregnant best friend's baby a complication to your relationship with Stephanie. The ones where you plan your little rendezvous while Jessica is at doctor's appointments." The colour drained completely from his face as he recognised his own words on my screen. He reached for my phone, but I pulled it back. "Natalia, it's not what it looks like," he began, his voice low and urgent. "Really? Because it looks like you're having an affair with one of Jessica's oldest friends while she's pregnant with your child." He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, suddenly looking less polished and more desperate. "It's complicated. No, it's actually very simple," I countered, my voice shaking with anger. "You betrayed Jessica in the worst possible way with someone she trusted while she was carrying your baby." Thomas leaned against the wall, the facade finally crumbling. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he said, his voice barely audible. "Stephanie and we just connected. Jessica was so focused on getting pregnant, then staying pregnant, everything became about the baby." "Are you seriously trying to justify this?" I asked incredulously. "Jessica suffered 3 miscarriages. Of course, she was focused on this pregnancy. She was fighting for your family while you were destroying it." He had the decency to look ashamed, his eyes dropping to the floor. "I know it was wrong. I've been trying to end it." When Thomas, after how many more lies, after the baby is born, after how many more times looking Jessica in the eye and telling her you love her while you're texting another woman, "I do love Jessica," he insisted, though the words rang hollow. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I'll end things with Stephanie, Jessica doesn't need to know. It would only hurt her. I laughed bitterly. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to lie to her anymore. Please, Natalia, he begged suddenly, grabbing my arm. Think about the baby. The stress could harm them both. I pulled my arm away, disgusted. Don't you dare use your child as a shield. You didn't think about the baby when you were sleeping with Stephanie. Thomas's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw genuine remorse. But was it remorse for his actions, or just for being caught? I'll tell her, he said finally. Just not today, not right after her baby shower. Give me a few days to end things with Stephanie properly and find the right moment to talk to Jessica. I shook my head. No more time, Thomas. You tell her tonight or I will. Those are your only options. Tonight, he repeated, panic rising in his voice. I can't. We have dinner with her parents. I need to prepare what I'm going to say. You've had 6 months to prepare, I said coldly. Jessica is staying here to open gifts with the remaining guests. When that's done, you're going to tell her the truth. All of it. Or I'll do it for you. He stared at me, searching for any sign of flexibility, but found none. Fine, he finally conceded. I'll tell her, but please let me do it my way. You have until everyone leaves, I said. Not a minute more. As we walked back to the main room, I saw Stephanie chatting animatedly with Jessica, acting for all the world like the supportive friend she pretended to be. The sight made me nauseous. How could she smile and celebrate Jessica's pregnancy while secretly sleeping with her husband? I rejoined the gathering, positioning myself where I could keep an eye on both Thomas and Stephanie. Thomas looked visibly shaken, his earlier confidence replaced by a nervous energy as he mechanically went through the motions of being the proud father-to-be. Jessica caught my eye and smiled warmly. You're back? Is Daniel feeling better? He's waiting in the car, I managed to say, forcing a smile. I forgot my purse. The lie tasted bitter in my mouth. But I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth yet. Not here, not surrounded by her family and friends. As the last guests began to leave, I texted Daniel to come back inside. If Thomas failed to keep his word, we would both be there for Jessica when her world fell apart. As the final guests departed with cheerful goodbyes and congratulations, the baby shower venue became eerily quiet. Only Jessica, Thomas, Daniel and I remained along with Jessica's mother Barbara, who was helping the restaurant staff pack up the leftover cake and gifts. Mum, you can head home if you want, Jessica told Barbara. Natalia and I can finish up here. Barbara hesitated, looking between all of us with a slight frown. The tension in the room must have been palpable, especially with Thomas standing rigid by the window, his face ashen, and Daniel and me exchanging tense glances. Are you sure, honey, I don't mind staying? Barbara offered. We've got it covered, I assured her, hoping my voice sounded normal. Daniel and I will help Jessica and Thomas get all the gifts to their car. After Barbara finally left, Jessica turned to us with a tired but happy smile. Thank you guys so much for everything. This shower was absolutely perfect. I couldn't meet her eyes, knowing what was coming. Daniel moved to stand beside me, his solid presence giving me strength. Jessica noticed the strange atmosphere and her smile faltered. What's going on? You all look like someone died. Thomas cleared his throat, opening his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. His eyes darted nervously between Jessica and the door, like he was calculating whether he could simply run away from this moment. Thomas, Jessica prompted, concern growing in her voice. What's wrong? He looked at me pleadingly, but I stared back coldly. This was his mess to confess. Jessica, I need to talk to you. He finally said, his voice barely audible. You're scaring me, Jessica said, instinctively, placing a protective hand over her belly. Is it about the baby? Did the doctor call you with test results or something? No, nothing like that, Thomas assured her quickly. The baby's fine. It's about me. But he stopped again, seemingly unable to force the words out. The seconds stretched into an excruciating minute of silence. Daniel finally stepped forward. Thomas has something he needs to tell you, Jessica. Something important. Thomas shot Daniel an angry look, but still couldn't bring himself to speak. I couldn't take it anymore. Watching my best friend standing there, confused and increasingly frightened, while her coward of a husband couldn't even give her the respect of an honest confession, was too much. "Thomas has been having an affair," I blurted out, my voice cracking with emotion. Jessica's face went completely blank, as if her mind couldn't process the words. "What? I'm so sorry, Jessica," I continued, tears filling my eyes. "Daniel discovered messages between Thomas and Stephanie. They've been having an affair for at least 6 months." Jessica's eyes widened in shock as she turned to Thomas. "Stephanie, my friend Stephanie." Thomas finally found his voice, though it was weak and trembling. "Jessica, I can explain." "Explain what?" she whispered, her hand still protectively curved around her bump. "Explain how you could sleep with my friend while I'm carrying your child, while I was recovering from losing our babies." Her voice rose with each question, the shock giving way to rage. "It just happened," Thomas said lamely. "I never meant to hurt you." "Show me proof," Jessica demanded, turning to me and Daniel. "I need to see it." Daniel silently handed her his phone with the screenshots. Jessica scrolled through them, her hands shaking violently. I watched as her expression transformed, cycling through disbelief, horror, and finally a cold fury I'd never seen on her face before. "How could you?" she asked Thomas when she finally looked up. Her voice was surprisingly steady. "How could you stand up there today and talk about being a good father and husband? How could you let me believe we were happy?" Thomas attempted to approach her, but she backed away. "Don't touch me," she warned. "Don't you dare touch me." "Jessica, please," he begged. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but I love you and our baby. We can work through this." She laughed, a hollow, broken sound that sent chills down my spine. "Work through this. You've been sleeping with one of my oldest friends for half of my pregnancy, probably laughing at me behind my back, making me look like a fool." "No, it wasn't like that," Thomas insisted. "Stephanie and I, it was just physical at first. But then what?" Jessica cut him off. "You fell in love with her. Is that supposed to make me feel better?" Before Thomas could answer, Jessica pulled out her phone and dialed a number with shaking fingers. We all watched in stunned silence as she put it on speaker. Stephanie answered on the third ring. "Hey, Jess, did the last guests finally leave? Get back to the restaurant. Now." Jessica commanded, her voice ice cold. There was a pause. "Is everything okay? Did something happen with the baby?" "Just get back here," Jessica repeated, and hung up. The next 10 minutes were excruciating. Jessica refused to sit, pacing the room with one hand on her back, the other still protectively holding her belly. Thomas tried several times to speak to her, but she shut him down with a single look each time. Daniel and I stood awkwardly by the door, unwilling to leave Jessica alone, but feeling like intruders in this intensely private moment. When Stephanie arrived, looking concerned and slightly confused, Jessica was waiting. "What's going on?" Stephanie asked, glancing around at our grim faces. "Jessica, are you okay?" Jessica wordlessly held up Daniel's phone with the incriminating messages displayed. Stephanie's face drained of colour as she recognised what she was seeing. "When were you going to tell me you were sleeping with my husband?" Jessica asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Stephanie's mouth opened and closed several times. Jess, it's not." "Not what? Not an affair, not a betrayal." Jessica's voice rose with each word, "because these messages make it pretty clear what it is." Stephanie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Jessica. I never meant for this to happen. We tried to fight it, we really did." "Fight it?" Jessica repeated incredulously. "What exactly were you fighting? The urge to betray me, to lie to my face day after day, to celebrate my pregnancy while sleeping with the father of my child." Stephanie looked to Thomas for help, but he stood frozen, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "We were going to tell you," Stephanie said weakly. "When?" Jessica demanded. after the baby was born, after how many more months of lies. I love him, Stephanie whispered as if that explained everything. Jessica's face contorted with rage. Get out, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. Both of you get out of my sight. Stephanie began to cry. Jessica, please, can we just talk about this? I know we hurt you, but hurt me, Jessica interrupted, her voice rising to a shout. You both destroyed me. You took my trust and my love, and you treated it like garbage. You let me believe you cared about me, about my baby. I do care about you, Stephanie insisted. This doesn't erase our friendship. Yes, it does, Jessica said firmly. It erases everything. Now get out before I say something I'll regret. Thomas finally moved, taking a step toward Jessica. I'm not leaving you like this. You're upset. Let me drive you home. My home, Jessica corrected him. Not yours anymore. You can sleep wherever you've been sleeping when you told me you were working late. Maybe Stephanie's place. Stephanie flinched at the direct hit. I should go, she mumbled, backing toward the door. Yes, you should, I said, speaking for the first time since Stephanie had arrived. I couldn't stand to look at her, this woman who had pretended to be our friend while betraying Jessica so completely. Thomas still hesitated. Jessica, think about the baby. Think about what you're doing. Don't you dare bring our child into this, Jessica hissed. You lost the right to be concerned about this baby when you decided to cheat on me. I'm still the father, he reminded her. Yes, biologically, she agreed coldly. But fatherhood is about more than DNA, Thomas. It's about loyalty, honesty, and putting your family first. You've failed at all of those. The finality in her tone seemed to finally penetrate Thomas's defenses. His shoulders slumped in defeat. I'll get a hotel room tonight, he said quietly. We can talk tomorrow when you're calmer. Don't count on it, Jessica replied. After Thomas and Stephanie had finally left, Jessica collapsed into a chair, her body shaking with silent sobs. Daniel tactfully stepped outside to give us privacy, but I rushed to kneel beside her, taking her trembling hands in mine. I'm so sorry, Jess, I whispered. I'm so sorry this happened. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Did you know before today? No, I assured her. Daniel just discovered it today. We came back as soon as we knew. She nodded, believing me. My whole life is a lie, she said, her voice hollow. My marriage, my friendship with Stephanie, all lies. I squeezed her hands. Not everything. Not our friendship. Not your baby. Not your strength, Jessica. You're the strongest person I know, and you're going to get through this. She looked down at her rounded belly, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. What am I going to do? How am I supposed to have this baby and go through a divorce at the same time? One day at a time, I told her gently. And you won't be alone. I'll be right here beside you, whatever you need. Jessica leaned forward, resting her forehead against my shoulder as her body was racked with sobs. I held her, letting her cry, knowing that this was just the beginning of her pain. The days following Jessica's baby shower were some of the most difficult I'd ever experienced, not because they were hard for me personally, but because watching my best friend's world collapse around her was almost unbearable. That first night, Daniel and I took Jessica to our house. There was no way she could go back to the home she shared with Thomas, not yet. She was in shock, alternating between fits of sobbing and periods of eerie calm when she'd stare blankly at the wall, one hand absently rubbing her belly. You can stay with us as long as you need, I assured her as I made up our guest room. Whatever you need, we're here, she nodded mechanically. I need to get some of my things from the house tomorrow. Clothes, prenatal vitamins, the baby's ultrasound pictures. Her voice trailed off as fresh tears welled in her eyes. I'll go with you, I promised. You don't have to face him alone. That night, I lay awake listening to the muffled sounds of Jessica crying through the wall. Daniel held me close, his solid presence, a comfort I now appreciated even more deeply. Thank you for telling me, I whispered into the darkness. It would have been easier to stay quiet. He kissed the top of my head. There was never a question. You always do what's right, even when it's hard. It's one of the reasons I love you. The next morning, Jessica was pale but composed as we drove to her house. Thomas's car wasn't in the driveway, which was a small mercy. He texted me, Jessica said as we pulled up. Says he's staying at the Marriott downtown. Wants to talk. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Inside the house felt different somehow. The happy photos of Jessica and Thomas that lined the hallway now seemed like cruel mockeries. The nursery they'd lovingly prepared together with its woodland creature theme and handcrafted mobile brought fresh tears to Jessica's eyes. I painted these walls myself, she said, running her hand over the soft green colour. Thomas held the ladder and told me I was nesting too early. She laughed bitterly. Maybe he was just trying to get me out of the house so he could see her. I helped Jessica pack several suitcases with her clothes, toiletries, important documents and the items she'd need for the remaining 2 months of her pregnancy. As we were loading them into my car, Thomas pulled into the driveway. Jessica stiffened beside me. I'm not ready to talk to him. You don't have to, I assured her. Get in the car. I'll handle this. Thomas approached us looking like he hadn't slept. His normally immaculate appearance was dishevelled, his eyes red-rimmed. Jessica, please, he began. Can we just talk? She's not ready, I said firmly, stepping between them. Give her space, Thomas. He ran a hand through his unkempt hair. I ended things with Stephanie, completely. It's over. I told her I want to fix my marriage. Jessica, who had been silent in the car, suddenly rolled down the window. There is nothing to fix, she said coldly. You broke something that can't be repaired. Don't say that, Thomas pleaded. We have a baby coming. We need to at least try. For the baby? Jessica laughed harshly. The baby you called a complication in your messages to her. The baby you were willing to lie to from before it was even born. Thomas flinched. I didn't mean those things. I was confused, Jessica. But I love you. I want our family. You should have thought of that 6 months ago, she replied, rolling the window back up. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see Thomas standing in the driveway, watching us leave. Are you okay? I asked Jessica. She stared straight ahead. No, but I will be. Over the next few weeks, more painful details emerged. Jessica filed for divorce despite Thomas's constant pleas for reconciliation. During the process, she discovered that the affair had actually been going on for nearly a year, not just 6 months, as we'd originally thought. It had started even before Jessica's last miscarriage, during a period when she and Thomas had been trying to conceive. He was sleeping with her while we were actively trying for a baby, Jessica told me one evening, her voice hollow with disbelief. Who does that? Stephanie's husband also learned the truth and filed for divorce immediately. According to mutual friends, he'd moved out of state to start fresh, leaving Stephanie alone to face the fallout of her choices. The baby shower group chat that had once been filled with excitement about Jessica's pregnancy fell silent as word spread about what had happened. Some friends reached out to Jessica privately with messages of support. Others, uncomfortable with the messy situation, disappeared from her life. Stephanie tried repeatedly to contact Jessica, sending texts, emails, even a handwritten letter expressing her remorse and begging for forgiveness. She says she still wants to be in my life, that she made a mistake, but still cares about me, Jessica told me incredulously after receiving the letter, as if sleeping with my husband for a year was just a simple error in judgment. What are you going to do? I asked. Jessica shredded the letter methodically. Nothing. She doesn't exist to me anymore. Thomas wasn't giving up so easily. He continued to call and text, sending flowers and baby items to our house, where Jessica was still staying. He showed up at her prenatal appointments, insisting on his right to be involved in the pregnancy. I know I screwed up our marriage, he told her at one appointment that I attended as Jessica's support person. But I'm still this baby's father. I want to be involved. Jessica, now 8 months pregnant and exhausted by the stress and heartbreak, finally agreed to let him attend the remaining appointments and be present for the birth. It's not for him, she explained to me afterward. It's for the baby. My child deserves to know their father regardless of how I feel about him. I admired her strength and maturity, putting her child's needs above her own pain, but I worried about the toll all this stress was taking on her. Her blood pressure had been elevated at recent appointments, and the doctor had warned her about the risks of preeclampsia. You need to reduce your stress, I reminded her gently one evening as we sat on my couch looking through baby name books. Jessica had decided not to use any of the names she and Thomas had previously chosen together. How exactly am I supposed to do that? She asked with a sad smile. I'm 8 months pregnant, going through a divorce, and preparing to be a single mother. You're not alone, I reminded her. You have your mum, your sister Daniel and me. We're all here for you. Jessica reached over to squeeze my hand. I know, and I'm grateful. But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and it hits me all over again. You know, everything I thought my life was going to be is gone. Not everything, I said, placing my hand on her belly where the baby was kicking vigorously. This little one is still coming, and they're going to have the most amazing, strong mother in the world. Jessica smiled through her tears, placing her hand over mine. And the best godmother. 3 weeks later, Jessica went into labour 2 weeks early. Despite everything, she kept her word and called Thomas. He met us at the hospital, his face a mixture of excitement and apprehension as he navigated this deeply personal moment with the wife who was now practically a stranger to him. I stayed in the delivery room at Jessica's request, holding her hand from one side, while Thomas awkwardly stood at the other. After 14 hours of labour, Jessica gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. Lillian Grace, Jessica announced, looking down at her daughter with tears of joy streaming down her face. Lily for short. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen on her face in months. As she held her daughter, the pain and betrayal temporarily receded, replaced by the pure, transformative love of a mother for her child. Thomas reached out tentatively to touch his daughter's tiny hand. She's perfect, he whispered, his own eyes wet with tears. For a brief moment, watching them both marvel at the new life they'd created, I could almost forget the painful journey that had brought us here. Almost, but not quite. 3 months after Lily's birth, Jessica had established a new normal that no one could have predicted a year earlier. She had moved out of our guest room and into a bright, airy apartment closer to her gallery, where she had gradually resumed working part-time with Lily in tow. The divorce had been finalised with surprising speed, largely because Jessica had agreed to Thomas's generous financial settlement in exchange for primary custody of Lily. He had visitation rights every other weekend, and Wednesday evenings an arrangement that was working better than anyone had expected. He's actually a good father, Jessica admitted to me one sunny afternoon as we sat in her small but charming courtyard garden. Lily was napping in her portable bassinet beside us, her perfect little face, peaceful in sleep. When he's with her, he's completely present. No phone checking, no distractions. That's good, I said cautiously, still finding it difficult to say anything positive about the man who had hurt my best friend so deeply. I'm not forgiving him, Jessica clarified, reading my expression. What he did to our marriage is unforgivable, but Lily deserves a father who loves her, and he does love her. I nodded, admiring Jessica's ability to separate her personal hurt from what was best for her daughter. It was a kind of strength I wasn't sure I would have in her position. Any word from Stephanie? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Jessica shook her head. Nothing since I sent that cease and desist letter through my lawyer. I think she finally got the message that I meant it when I said she was dead to me. According to mutual friends, Stephanie had moved to Seattle after both her marriage and her nursing job at the local hospital had fallen apart. The affair with Thomas had cost her everything, as it should have. Thomas, surprisingly, had not rekindled things with Stephanie after the divorce. According to Jessica, he claimed to genuinely regret the affair and wanted to focus on being a good co-parent. He tried the whole "I made the biggest mistake of my life" speech again last week when he picked up Lily. Jessica told me with an eye roll. I shut that down immediately. I told him our relationship is about Lily, now nothing else. As for me, the entire experience had given me a new appreciation for my own marriage. Daniel and I had always had a solid relationship built on honesty and mutual respect, but watching Jessica's marriage implode had made me even more grateful for what we had. I can't imagine going through what Jessica's experiencing, I told Daniel one night, as we prepared dinner together in our kitchen. Becoming a new mother is hard enough without adding divorce and betrayal to the mix. Daniel nodded thoughtfully as he chopped vegetables. She's handling it with incredible grace. Not everyone could do that. I know, I agreed. She's my hero, honestly. The baby shower drama had permanently altered Jessica's friend group. Some had drifted away, uncomfortable with the messy reality of her life, but others had stepped up in beautiful ways, dropping off meals, offering to babysit, or simply checking in regularly to make sure she was okay. Jessica's mother, Barbara, had been particularly supportive, staying with Jessica for the first 2 weeks after Lily's birth and continuing to help several days a week. Jessica's sister, Amelia, had moved closer, taking an apartment just a few blocks away to be more available for her sister and niece. 6 months after Lily's birth, Jessica invited a small group of her closest supporters to a rebirth party at her apartment. It wasn't a birthday celebration or a housewarming, it was something uniquely Jessica, a celebration of surviving the darkest period of her life and emerging stronger on the other side. I wanted to thank all of you, she said, standing in her living room with Lily on her hip, addressing the small gathering of people who had stood by her. This past year broke me into pieces, but each of you helped me put myself back together. I'm not the same person I was before, and that's okay. I like who I'm becoming. She looked directly at me when she added, "Some of you made hard choices to tell me painful truths when it would have been easier to stay silent. Thank you for caring enough about me to do what was right, not what was easy." I felt tears spring to my eyes as Daniel squeezed my hand. The decision to tell Jessica about the affair had been agonizing, knowing it would cause her immense pain. But watching her now, holding her daughter with confidence and speaking with genuine strength, I knew we had made the right choice. After the gathering, as we were helping Jessica clean up, she pulled me aside. "I never properly thanked you," she said quietly. "For what?" I asked, genuinely confused. "You've thanked me many times." "Not for everything," she insisted. "Not for being brave enough to tell me the truth when you found it. Not for standing by me through every ugly, painful moment without judgment. Not for loving Lily like she's your own." I hugged her tightly, careful not to squish Lily, who was sleeping against her shoulder. "You would have done the same for me." "I would," she agreed. "That's what real friendship is. Not what I had with Stephanie that was just convenience and shared history. This," she gestured between us, "this is the real thing." As Daniel and I drove home that evening, I reflected on everything that had happened since that fateful baby shower a year ago. Jessica's world had been shattered, yet she had rebuilt something beautiful from the broken pieces. She was thriving as a single mother. Her art gallery was doing well, and she had even cautiously begun dating again, though she insisted it was just coffee and nothing serious yet. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Daniel asked as we neared our home. "I was just thinking about how differently things could have turned out," I said, "if you hadn't noticed those messages, if we had decided to keep quiet." "Jessica would still be married to a cheater living a lie," Daniel finished. "Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is tell them a painful truth." I nodded. thinking about how Jessica's story had changed my perspective on so many things: marriage, friendship, honesty, resilience. Her journey had taught me that sometimes the most devastating moments in life can lead to unexpected strength and new beginnings. "You know what Jessica told me today?" I said as we pulled into our driveway. "She said that as awful as everything was, she wouldn't change what happened because it forced her to discover how strong she really is, and it gave her Lily." Daniel smiled. "That sounds like Jessica, always finding the light even in the darkest places." That night, I thought about all the different paths a life can take, how quickly everything can change with one revelation, one moment of truth. I thought about the courage it takes to be honest even when that honesty causes pain. And I thought about the remarkable resilience of the human heart, how it can break completely, yet somehow find a way to beat stronger than before. Jessica's story wasn't a fairy tale. There was no magical happy ending where everything was neatly resolved. Instead, there was something better, a real woman facing real heartbreak with grace and courage, rebuilding her life on her own terms and finding joy in unexpected places. If you're watching this and facing your own moment of painful truth, remember Jessica's journey. Sometimes the hardest path leads to the most beautiful destination. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth or hear it when it's spoken to you. And sometimes when a relationship ends, it's not the end of your story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. Have you ever had to tell someone a difficult truth? Or had someone care enough about you to tell you something painful but necessary? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for watching, and remember, true friendship means telling hard truths even when it breaks your heart to do so.